All right, everybody. I hope you're having a great time at the Miami Crypto Experience. My name is Richard Carthon. I'm the CEO of Cryptocurrent, and we're going to be talking about non-fungible people. So this is going to be more focused around community and making sure that we can help unlock community and fandom. So we're going to the next one. So a little bit about us. Again, we are with Cryptocurrent, and we help bridge the gap between people who know nothing about cryptocurrency and blockchain with thought leaders in the space. And I've been in the startup world for about 5 years now. Also have some background in finance, part of a cryptocurrency and fund called Crescent City Capital.
And I'm Stephen Miller. I am the COO for Cryptocurrent. I've got about 10 years in the startup space before joining, and it's mostly been within the SaaS space and then also in the branding industry. So coming into Cryptocurrent, we had a really big focus on a rebrand earlier in the year last year. And I ended up coming on full time back in January, but I'm also steering Phoenix Startup Week. So if you're interested in joining that virtual conference next week, we've got 5 days of speakers for that one too. So as we move this thing forward, I want to kind of just level set with y'all. In this industry, we have this habit, right, of like going into a presentation and hearing like, look, this is not financial advice because you don't want to be held liable. I'm sitting here telling you this is financial advice. Please use the shit that we're talking about today, because it is extremely valuable whether you're a project, you're a personal brand, or you are a business of your own. There is no greater investment that you can make in life than the investment in yourself. Take that to the bank. Let's go next slide.
And so today we want to make sure that you leave with some key takeaways, right? We want to make sure that you leave out of here feeling empowered to go and take something back into your day-to-day life. So what does that look like? We want to make sure that the relationships between brand and identity and community. We're also going to be talking about the key to creating communities and raving fans. We're also going to talk about how non-fungible people relate to your project or your personal brand, as well as mechanisms to engage with non-fungible people and brand loyalty.
And as a special bonus for y'all, we're going to, go ahead and flip. We're going to be giving away a Ledger Nano S today. So if you want to take out your phones, it seems like there's some really thick competition in the room. We're really full up today. So if you want to take out your phone, scan this QR. We will be giving out a Ledger Nano S at the end of this presentation. So enter to win with us. Go through our Gleam link, give it a shot. I was gonna say, there's the proof. The proof is in the pudding. We actually have a Ledger for you. We're not just like gaslighting you into going through our giveaway link. So let's just get down to fundamentals real quick, because we need to lay a foundation if we're gonna talk NFP, non-fungible people. Within this entire discussion, there's 2 frameworks we have to talk about. We have to talk about brand identity and community cornerstones. So when we're talking about brand identity, what does that mean and how does it apply to you? There are 4 things that go into this. We're talking about purpose first. Is anybody in here familiar with the book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why? Okay, so a couple folks. So the entire premise is that we have to look inside before we can start going outside. We have to share the intention that we came into a project with first. It's not necessarily that you're going to immediately start streaming that to the world, but that's how you have to start when you're building a brand identity. Now, real quick, can we get a quick show of hands? Who here has their own personal brand that they're currently building within the crypto space? Okay, so a couple, and then projects that are currently developing in the space. Okay, great. So again, this really applies to both. Right? Every single thing that we're talking about today, it applies to you, it applies to projects, it applies to businesses. The next element is why I wanted to make sure I preface with that, is your company avatar and your customer avatar. What we mean by that is with a company avatar, you need to have an understanding as to what you're going to personify. If your business, your platform, your personal brand is not putting the right face forward and you don't have an idea as to what that means, or what you want to put out to the world, it's going to be lost on your customer. It's going to be lost on the person you're trying to reach, the person you're trying to connect with. That's why you also have to be thinking about the customer avatar. Customer avatar is you going out in the world and you saying, okay, who is ideal to me? Who is the perfect fit for what I'm doing, what my brand is representing? And then we start looking at things like personality. I've worked in the branding space now for really close to 8 to 10 years. 8 to 10 of it has been branding. This is the most overlooked thing when you're starting a personal brand or you are starting, a company. You have to understand that it comes down to culture, the way that the community receives you. Talking about your actual customer, how they actually interact with you, how you want that relationship to look like. And then going deeper into things like feeling, how do you elicit an emotional response with them? We're in a technical space, no shit, right? But the truth is that even these technical companies, the ones that you saw in the last bull cycle that lasted to now, you don't think about it, but they actually elicited an emotional response. They made you feel something, whether it was just about the crypto space at large or about their project that kept you coming back. So we have to be thinking about that. But then to me, you start getting into voice, talking about, okay, how do I want to sound? Do I want to sound a little irreverent? Am I Gary V? Am I going to sit out there and be dropping F-bombs all over the place? Or am I going to come up as professional? That's your choice as a brand. You have to make those decisions. The next piece is impact. What do you want to change about the world, guys? We had a company over here, which was the company or project that was just starting. Yeah.
Social platform for minority smokers.
Okay, so again, there's already some immediate talk of brand in that. What's the impact layer? What is the impact you're trying to make?
Taking it back from like we not getting entry to industry and form.
Okay, so again, getting into an industry further, giving more opportunity to people who are lesser served. That's an impact, guys. That's making and affecting change. When we talk about X factor, the last piece of personality, we're talking about what sets you apart. Again, we like to talk like there's competition across this space. Ethereum versus Cardano, Cardano versus Polkadot. But in reality, these are either seen as alternatives or complements. It's not all competition. It doesn't have to be viewed as competition. But what sets your platform apart, what sets your personal brand apart from everybody else that's in your community? Lastly, comes down to core values. This is something I really want you guys to leave with today. We're in a technical space. It can be largely discussed that brands here are really focused on the tech. No shit. The element that's missing when we talk about mass adoption, the missing ingredient is humanizing it. We have to make it so that these people understand the project, but also can understand the people who are driving it. What does the community look like behind the scenes of the project? What do they stand for? So that's the entire brand identity component, but Richard's going to take us through the community cornerstones.
So going more into community, right? So if you're trying to build this rapid community that's really engaged and wanting to be a part of your journey or whatever business it is or your own personal brand, how do you get that buy-in? How do you get people to really, really care? So one of the first ways is you have to start with your leadership. So the reason that you go through your brand identity in the first place is to establish what is it that you're trying to elicit in the group that you're creating. So you want to make sure that you're setting expectations for what you want that group to embody. You want to make sure that whatever you want that voice and that narrative to be, that they are making sure that they're going in line with what you want that to look like. Because it's very easy for a community to shift in a direction that you ultimately didn't plan for. And a lot of that usually has to happen with not really having a vision of what you wanted that to embody in the first place. So we want to make sure that through your engagement that you trust your process. So the whole process of creating that brand, creating your core values, getting all of that established ahead of time is so that as you start to build this out, you can stay consistent with it because your community is ultimately going to trust you if you show that you are trusting what is being built there. And so we want to make sure that you are staying clear and consistent. By having a clear and consistent message that's staying on brand with what you're doing, you get buy-in and you start to see the snowball that builds up and you go from, being a no name to ultimately having this gigantic group that is an absolute raging fan and wants to deal and work with you with the various ways that you're out there.
So another disclaimer for you. Again, because we're so packed, I feel like we're not going to come back at us and give us a negative review or anything, right? But we're here to teach. We're not here to sell. So please do not get that message twisted. The next set of examples is just because we need to be able to relay some of these different brand principles and community cornerstones to you through, again, a persona, and that is our brand at Cryptocurrent. So in this example, we want to take you back to the very core, what we started out with brand, right? The idea of purpose. Where did it all start? So as we can see here in this middle circle, our purpose was to inspire others to learn more and get involved in crypto. That's what originally drove us. Richard started this company in the idea that he didn't understand exactly what was going on. He saw that there was a big gap in terms of simplifying it for the layman, finding the way to connect. So that was his purpose. That's what drove him internally to get out there with cryptocurrency. Then we start looking at core values. Now, Richard, I would really appreciate if you go take us through the core values, because this is something we've been pressing on really hard with not just like the internal culture of our company, but also with our community as we've been, growing very steadily for the last couple months.
So very quickly, it is diligence. Oh, so the way I kind of put it is an acronym, so it's easier to remember that way. So it's digits with the C. So we have diligence, integrity, gratitude, consistency, teamwork, set and crush goals.
So the reason that's important, guys, is because, again, we're talking about what you value. And these words, they have meaning to every single different person in the room, right? We define them differently. So when we are communicating what our brand values are to our subject audience, the people that we're trying to meet, they need to understand the way that we define them. Because, again, you say consistency, I can define that 3 different ways right now. Then finally, we start using that as the bridge. We bridge it to how we want to represent our brands externally. So when we look at the top here, our brand statement that we're typically putting out in front of people is that we help bridge the gap between those just discovering the space and the thought leaders who are shaping the future.
So on that, we're going to start talking about who is our community, right? So who do we have in mind when we were building this out? So our initial audience were the millennials, the Generation Zs, and honestly, it's even started to ship into boomers, because ultimately you're starting to get a lot of interest from people all over different backgrounds that really want to know about this stuff, right? It's one of those things where people are starting to come up and ask you questions, because we're all the crypto or blockchain people in the room, and now you're starting to get friends and family that are asking you, hey, tell me about this thing, how do I get going? And it can feel like you're drinking from a fire hose, right? It's just so much information at once. And so what we wanted to do was be able to take all of this information, and if you have this small cup, to be able to pour a little bit so it's just enough and it's not running over. It's just enough so you can understand it and keep coming back for more. So as we were building that out and we were looking at who's our audience, we wanted to also make sure that we could meet them where they are. So some people like to get that information through their ears when they're doing a commute to work. Some people like to get that information watching a video. Some people like to read it. So we made sure that we created content that would meet each of these people where they are, because we want to take away all of the friction. We want to make it as frictionless as possible. So with that, you get buy-in, and with having such an easy way to onboard, now you have a way for it to be sticky and have that retention and have them want to continue to be there. And so if you look at our active audience, it's everyone here, right? You are our audience. And so now how do we now connect with you, bring you into our ecosystem and make you feel like you're part of this family? Because ultimately, when we look at how are we building out our brand, how are we building our community, you want to look at the aspect of inclusivity, right? You want to make sure that it's inclusive and that it's empowering. And you want to make sure that we are creating interactions versus transactions. We don't want this to be a transactional relationship. We don't want it to feel like, hey, you all spent, good time, effort, energy to come here today, and because of that, now we're asking you to come buy a thing from us. No, we want this to be an experience. We want you to have such a great joy with spending time with us, and we can teach you something new that you like that interaction. You're like, I just want to be part of this journey. So we want y'all to join our journey of knowledge and following our curiosity, so that we can help you continue to follow your curiosity, get some really good knowledge, and if you have some that you want to pass on to somebody else, it's that easy to just share a link or share something that can now speak to a subject matter.
So here's one of these things that now we start coming across, because now we're really on the precipice of talking about what an NFP and a non-fungible person can do for your brand and for your community, and recognizing it. When we have communities and we have brands and we treat it like it's a set it and forget it mode, you just put it in place and it's going to exist and it's never going to change, it fails every time. And it's because we need to make sure that those interactions that we're providing are consistent. We need to make sure that the experiences that we're providing for our communities can actually allow us to grow, allow us to change, allow us to adapt over time. So you cannot set it and forget it. And I think we're going to get into that a little bit further.
So we got to get your community to care, right? Ultimately, if you're going to be spending all this time creating all this amazing content or creating this amazing project and spending all this money and dev time, or even trying to like figure out how you can like trade and do everything else, if you're going to spend all this energy to pour it into somebody, how do you get them to care, right? Like, what's the point of all this energy if you're not going to get someone to buy in? So how do you get that? So a couple different ways that you can do that is, first, you must actively manage your brand. So you might go and create a bunch of content, put it out for the world, and then just disappear for like a week or 2 weeks or a month. Again, consistency. Consistently putting out some information, consistently engaging and talking back. When people communicate with you, do you communicate back? Taking that extra step to make sure that when people actually engage with you, you're taking that extra moment to just go and engage back. It goes a long way. And then having that authentic brand, not just talking and saying a thing, but living it. People can feel the authenticity when it's there, but they also can tell and sniff out BS from a mile away. Also, you must know your niche. So with all of us in here, we're all going very granularly into both cryptocurrency and blockchain. But let's say even within that, there's nuances. There's NFTs. There are, you could also deal with DeFi. You can also deal with accounting. There's a ton of different nuances. And even your audiences, who you're going after, right? If you're going after minorities, if you're going after boomers, whoever it is, you still can make content specific to them as well. But regardless, whatever your community is after, make sure you are staying in your niche and you're going deep in it. And then also make sure that you give them what they want instead of what you think they want. So you might have a concept of like what is very important to someone, but you will have no clue unless you actually get feedback. If you have your own brand right now, if you have your own company and you haven't taken a moment recently to ask them, hey, what do you think about this? What can we do to improve? And if you don't have a way to actively get that information, I want to challenge you all to go and do that. One of the most recent ways that we've been able to do that is through Clubhouse. We now have one that we do every Wednesday at 7 p.m. And through that, we've had people literally tell us, like on air, how they feel about certain things, what they want to be learning about, and other ways that we can connect. So make sure you're constantly getting that feedback and acting on it.
So now's where we're actually making this connection to non-fungible people. And I want to make sure that this is coming across the right way, so just bear with me here, because I think that when we talk about non-fungible tokens and we get wrapped up in the conversation, we lose track of the fact that it's not just collectibles and the idea behind it. It's the idea that ultimately the fungibility of it is that it's not exchangeable for any other token, right? The NFP, the idea of a non-fungible person, stems from the fact that you cannot trade a member of your own community for any member of another community. You have to absolutely respect the fact that they're unique individuals, they're human beings that are in your ecosystem. Yeah. So as we start talking about this, it brings up an idea about raving fans. And that's why we really wanted to build this out, because we want to help you to manifest raving fans from your own communities. Without them, ultimately, you're not going to get the hype to really take it to the moon. So first and foremost, we have to recognize uniquity. And when I say making constant deposits, I mean that from the sake of like, how can we touch somebody's life today? How can we start to interact at a little bit deeper of a level? We talk about this in actual NFTs frequently. And if you were in the session yesterday with, who was it? Ken Bozak. He's a professional at this. When you look at his communities through Telegram and the way that he builds out his NFT platform and he builds out all of these different NFTs, they're relating directly to what those people want on a personal level. It is not a matter of, well, you know what? We're going to make a planet today and it's going to be my head spinning. They're considering the animation, the types of things that actually resonate within the community. So we need to start making sure that our projects, our brands are really bringing an inordinate amount of value without the expectation of something in return. When we do that, we start creating content and relationships within our communities. The next element of this is really getting the hook in. So when you're building fandom, there's only one way to keep them around. You have to land more hooks. Literal hooks, guys. I'm talking like a fish hook. Because if you get them on the hook and they keep actually fighting against you, you're never gonna reel them in. You need to make sure that you're leaning into the feelings that you were trying to elicit when we were talking about the beginning of this branding conversation. Get them to have a resonance with the emotions you're trying to elicit. And then lastly, as we've been saying, you have to take this idea of meet them where they are over the idea of build it and they will come. I don't give a shit what type of project you're building if you're in the tech space. If you do not know who this target is and you don't do validation and research into what they're looking for and how they want to receive that, the growth is going to be stifled. So the last thing is make sure that you're treating it like a relationship. Ultimately, with any brand that you really find yourself in love with, they are actively trying to take with push and pull. They want to know where you're coming from and why they should give a shit. So that's where you have to be thinking about this from to build out bigger fandom and unlocking the true power that lives behind your unique individuals that are in your communities.
So there's a couple of mechanisms that you can do to build that loyalty, right? So again, you want to build these raving fans. You want to have all these people that are diehards of whatever your brand is or whatever your community is or whatever it is that your company that you're ultimately trying to bring. So what does that look like? So first is you want to meet them where they are. So again, going back to the concept of the way that we decided to come out is through our podcast. We have a website. We also have a blog. We have YouTube. We have all these different channels to, again, meet people where they are. If we want to meet Gen Z, we have to be on TikTok. So we started creating TikToks. If you want to be with where a lot of hardcore people are in both cryptocurrency and blockchain, that's Twitter. And so we learned that crypto Twitter was a great place for us to start growing. And then from there, we started to get into these other platforms. But of course, you have to first meet your audience where they are, figure out where they are, and then keep growing in the various other places. And then the next is going to be, of course, to create a frictionless experience. It's so easy to meet this person and to now work with them that you can just keep everything going. So I don't know if all of you are on Telegram. So if you don't know about Telegram, great app to get on. A lot of the crypto blockchain community is on there. And a lot of new projects that come out, they go and put their projects on there. And there's these communities that you can follow so you can keep updated with them. So that would already be an instant way that you can start getting directly with some of these communities. So that's what we started to do. We created a Telegram group for our Clubhouse. And now because of that fandom that we're creating with that, that's starting to grow. And that's another touch point that we have with our community. And then last but not least, you want to make sure that you are constantly creating a solution, as AKA you are willing to try something new, see how it works, make some iterations and repeat. If you're not willing to try something new, you might not know the blessings that and great things that can come back from you. So I was not an initial fan of trying to go and use Clubhouse. Steven convinced me, hey, this is something we should be doing. I said, okay, the next day we did it. And then since then, it's been one of the greatest decisions we've made. We've seen a snowball of just more and more people that are coming into our ecosystem and wanting to be a part of us. And we've also been able to go into other different groups, network with them, and now it's continued to build our ecosystem, right? So ultimately, you have to meet people where they are. So as much as you are going and creating these great things, if you won't take a second to step back and find new communities to bring into your ecosystem, it's something that we really want to make sure that you take a moment to consider.
And again, this comes down to active experimentation, guys. You're not going to get this shit right on the first try. You have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone nonstop. And then once you find something like, hey, there's a little bit of traction here, lean into it. See, test new things on that platform. See where you can get traction. Ultimately, to me, once you have that hook in, you have to then start digging the people that you've already got as fans deeper into that layer of raving fan. When we were mentioning the fact that there's the inclusive side of things, we're not saying to void that. What we're saying is to make higher touch experiences. So when we're looking at Clubhouse, for example, they're now starting to release newer feature sets on the app that allow you to go deeper and offer exclusive member-only Clubhouse chats. So we can do more active live Q&A, do learning environment, and really start teaching for what we can back to the community. The other two that I really want to point out here are Patreon, in case you are especially in the personal brand space. For personal brands right now, Patreon is one of the best platforms out there for just generally continuing to have a community that supports you. And then most recently is Rally.io. Has anybody heard about Rally? I'm assuming at least a few have. Okay, if you are in the personal brand space or if you ever concerning launching your own token, even if it's for a business that has fan base, Rally is allowing you to socially tokenize your brand and allowing to create more touch points so that you can have your community use your own token with you to actually have experience. So for example, we could theoretically issue a token and allow people to have private one-on-one educational sessions with us and charge a cent or 2 cents or whatever for each individual token. And the last piece, again, when you get so deep into this, when community is landing and your brand is resonating, that's when you want to start creating gamification elements around your brand and activating your community on that level. We started this presentation with this link at the bottom. You see where it says giveaway? Because we're giving something away. We gamified the presentation because we wanted to make sure that as people filtered in and out, that they had the opportunity to come in and participate. So we're gonna run this giveaway right now through Gleam before we get into Q&A real quick.
And actually, as we go through the Q&A, we're going to announce the winner right at the end. We've had quite a few people enter, so thank you everyone that has entered. And again, we are going to release the winner of this nice Ledger NanoS in a moment. But before we do, we want to just open it up. If anyone had any questions or comments or anything that we can help elaborate on, we're happy to do that. Absolutely. So we are Cryptocurrent. We are a blockchain and cryptocurrency education platform. So we are a podcast. We also have a website, crypto-current.co, and you can go there and you can basically interact and engage and get educational content. So if you want to learn more about NFTs, if you want to learn about DeFi, if you want to learn about new and emerging projects that are coming out, that's where you'd be able to explore it. So we had projects that came out like BlockFi. We had the CEO of that come out before they launched. We also had like Ocean Protocol on there before they launched. We've had a ton of new and emerging companies that you would at least put you on your radar so you know about what's potentially available, but then also doing it in such a way that it's easy to comprehend and you can explain it to someone else. So the whole idea is to give you education by bringing in thought leaders that can dumb it down, but then also let you know about the cool project that you can now go and interact with. So our business model is purely growing our audience, right? And what we do is are able to find new and emerging companies, these crypto projects that are trying to get in front of a raging audience, raging fans, and find ways for them to get in front of our audience. So basically, sponsorship opportunities to where they want to come and consistently have their brand in front of our audience, a way to do that.
How do we best contact? What's the best means of contact if we want to collaborate or someone to reach out for sponsorships to get on and be a part of your show?
So I'm so glad you asked. Richard, can you flip to the next slide? This is our direct contact info. So if you'd like to connect with us, the best channels for us right now are through Instagram and Clubhouse. But if you come up and find me afterward, I'd be more than happy to actually give out more personal contact so we can connect offline. I'm sure Richard may give the same answer, but I'm a little bit more forthcoming with information.
Thank you.
Yep. And on that note, we've been absolutely thrilled to have covered this conference, Miami Crypto Experience. We were able to provide some coverage ahead of time, interview some of the keynote speakers. We're also pulling some aside to talk to them. We're also pulling aside some various attendees that have come so they can express their experience. But again, we ultimately want to provide that experience and provide that feedback so that people can see all the various ways that you can enter into crypto and blockchain space. Like everything might not speak to you. So if we bring up a speaker that comes and talks about how they are using solar energy to then create their own token that they can now use to pay for their electricity bill, that might not speak to you, but that might speak to an electrician that's like, wow, I didn't even know that was an option. Who knew that I could even do that? And so now, because you came in that way, now we can start to get you into the rest of the ways that possibilities are available. So that was another piece of it.
Any other questions before we call this one a day? All right, well, we're gonna run this giveaway real quick and see who's walking away from here with a Ledger NanoS. And there's a reason we're not putting this up on screen, guys. We just don't want to dox you and show your email to everybody. So Timothy Droll.
All right.
You're our guy. Guys, give a round of applause for Timothy. All right, so look, we've been Cryptocurrent. We would love to connect offline. We've been asked specifically by the next speaker who's coming up to specifically mention how good looking he is. I believe Ben Armstrong, BitBoy Crypto himself, is up next in this room, as you probably know. But yeah, pay attention to his good looks. That was his big pitch right before he walks in. So hopefully that builds enough hype. Enjoy.